if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
Challenges, but I'm overcoming each one that come my direction. Thank goodness for the skill set, the research, and development to keep continuing to go to the next level. Anyway, my snowblower's not starting up. I'm about to pull the jet out the carburetor, check it to see if I need to clean it, and it's probably clogged up or dirty. I pulled the plug out and checked the plug for sparks, so we're definitely getting fire. That's a great thing. Next, we're not getting fuel. I put a little fuel inside the combustion chamber and the engine tried to fire over. So that's pointing to a fuel issue. So I disconnected the cover, about to pull off the bottom of the fuel bowl, and we're going to see if we can get that jet out there and check that to see if it's clogged up. And if so, clean it to see if we can get this thing fired up. We have a big blizzard tomorrow, and this driveway is probably going to be covered full of snow. So let's move, baby, the drive wheel, so that way we can get easier access to that jet bowl. Okay, judging for the crap that's inside this fuel bowl, I would most definitely say that it's definitely clogged up in there. Well, I cleaned out my fuel bowl, removed the emulsion tube, and surprisingly, this was not clogged at all. You can literally see light through these ports right there and right there. So it's not clogged at all, which was extremely surprising. But one thing that I did discover was that my fuel bowl did not have much fuel in there at all. So it should have been getting quite a bit of fuel. It's just a straight shot from the gas tank feed into this tube right here that leads into the carburetor. So we may possibly have a clogged fuel filter, or some debris may have gotten clogged up in these lines and is not feeding the carb. This fuel bowl should have been filled up with a lot more fuel, and barely anything came out. So it's definitely starving for fuel. We'll get this put back together and check our source to see if we're getting proper fuel. See if we got a plug line or something. Well, we most definitely have a problem with the fuel coming out of the tank going into the carburetor. My fuel valve right here, and nothing is coming out. So I took it off my line. It's a little beat up, not too bad, but I'm gonna still replace it because the ends was a little bit crusty. But no fuel is coming out. You would think something would be coming out of here, so maybe some debris or something got clogged up in the tank and is not letting it flow. I'm gonna unscrew this valve and just double check the valve just to make sure. So once I start loosening up the valve, fuel should start pouring out the bottom of the tank. Yes, so I definitely have a problem with this valve not letting fuel flow come through. And the funny thing about it is no fuel filter on this system. It just flows out of the tank straight into the carburetor. It does have a screen on the inside of the tank to catch any type of debris. But yeah, as I'm unscrewing this, you can see the fuel just start pouring out. Yeah, see, it's leaking. But so we have an issue with this valve. We're going to drain the tank and we'll check this check valve just to see what's the issue and why this thing is clogged up, not letting any fuel flow out. And of course, if I switch the valve, you can see it shows the arrow for fuel flow. Even if I switch it a different direction, nothing is coming out of here at all, either way. So something that's definitely clogged up in here for this not to flow. No. There's your fuel filter right here. Is built onto the valve itself. And apparently this must be clogged and is not letting the fuel flow through. So that's the culprit. Well, I figured out the problem with the valve. Actually, when it's pointing this way, is on, but it was clogged up. All this debris came out of the valve. So the fuel filter was partially clogged, but because this sat for so many years, it's almost like this valve just rusted out and was just a lot of debris was just clogged up in here. So I had to stick a drill bit in here and screw out and get a lot of this dust and debris and continue to use the blowgun from my compressor and finally got it to flow. So now it's flowing pretty good. And I will use an external fill filter instead of this one. This fill filter threads into the top part of this port, and we're going to go external, so that way it'll be a lot easier. Okay, just went up to the local parts store and got an external fill filter, and as you can see when I turn the valve on, you can see the fill is starting to flow into it. So it was clogged up pretty good, the fill valve itself, and was not letting the fill flow through to even get to the fill bowl on the carburetor. And there was a lot of trash and debris up in there. As you can see, that was not good. So we're going to go ahead and put the cover back on and try to fire this baby up and see what will happen, if we can be ready for that blizzard tomorrow. Okay, we're getting closer. I'll put a zip tie on here just to keep the hose out of the way of the levers, so that way when I move these selector switches, we're not just rubbing directly up against it. I'll pull it over just a little bit more for that extra clearance. And then we'll put the cover back on and give it a shot. Okay, I'm ready to test. I actually primed it, and you're supposed to only push the primer 3 times. I pushed it like 6 or 7 times because I seen my fill level right here, and I wasn't sure if it was going to pull full fuel up in there because of the angle that I have it sitting on. But apparently it started overflowing because the overflow port is right up under here, and it just started dripping on the ground. So apparently fill is getting in here into the fill bowl and up into the overflow. Let's give this a shot. This will be the first time in 8 years if this thing fires up. I only used it one winter, and it's been sitting ever since. So we're going to plug in the electric cord for our starter. Make sure my ground prongs and everything is correct. Some people actually angle this up a little bit higher, so that way you don't have to fight coming around this bar. So I may end up doing the same thing. And I have it on choke, so this will be the first. We know we're getting fill now. Let's give this a shot. Hopefully I didn't flood it because I primed it a little too much. But either way, let's go for it. Wow, first time. You can see the smoke coming out. Yeah, baby. We are ready for the blizzard tomorrow. The snow beast is ready. I don't want to smoke my house up too much. Let me shut it off. Oh my goodness. Whew. Yeah, as it started getting all that extra fuel out, you heard it idle up. It kicked up really high, which is good. Woo! Unfortunately, I filled my garage up full of smoke, which is going to seep upstairs. It's not good. But I'm happy we got this bad boy running, and we are ready for the blizzard. So let's get all my tools cleaned up, and then tomorrow we'll be back up on this beast. I picked up some extra fill for the TT. We're going to pressurize the fill lines and see if we have any leaks. I have a lot of lines to tighten up because I have not tightened all the lines up properly yet. Everything's been just cut, fitted in place, and lightly tightened. So we got to snug everything up nice and tight, pressurize it, and move to the next level. Okay, the snow beast is ready to go. Well, as I said, it was going to be covered with a lot of snow, and the driveway is covered. So we're going to dig out the snow blower and see if we can start getting some of this stuff done. It is a mess out here. Back outside for round 2. All right, I came out here about 2 hours ago, and I used my snow blower, actually plow and blow all the snow off the driveway. So you can see the wall of snow, and I had did my whole driveway. I come back out 2 hours later, and we have another 3 inches of snow on top of what I just did. So it's round 2. Let's crank up the snow blower and get back at it, baby. crazy blizzard storm out here, anywhere from 8 to 14 inches in some areas. It is a chilly 14 degrees out here with a wind chill of 1 degree. It is freezing. So that is it for today. I've pretty much the snow and used the snowblower. It's backed up, covered up in the snow. Audis are buried, and S5 is clear. The truck is over there still buried in the snow, so that's 5 would be primary transportation. I'm hearing a noisy clanking sound on my passenger rear side from the Audi TT, and it sounds like it possibly could be coming from the upper strut bushing. So we're going to jack this car up real quick, take the tire off, take a look and see if the 2 bolt mounting points for the upper bushing is still in position. Let's do this. It's freezing, no joke, all snow and ice. So I took a quick look. It seemed like everything's okay up in there. I can see the bolts and everything appears to be intact for both bolts, and it's pretty stiff up top. So what I'm thinking, that clanking sound that I'm hearing is coming from my sway bar bushings. I did order some polyurethane sway bar bushings to put on my replacement 034 sway bars because my bushings are pretty much shot. They wore out. They've had their good days, and it's time for some new ones. But that will be for another day. It is too cold out here to be trying to put these on. So we'll wait till it's at least 40 or 50 degrees instead of 20 degrees with a wooden chill of 7. All right, that's a wrap for this. Let's put this wheel back on and get this put back together. I'm about to adjust the RPM speed limit of the VR6 engine until we can get some good data with seeing how the engine performs, especially since we have aftermarket cams. A lot of the Volkswagen Atlases have their RPM speed limit set very low, 6,200 for a lot of vehicles, and some of the CCs with the 3.6 liter VR6 engine may range anywhere from 62 to 6,800 RPM. My guess if they get an aftermarket chip just to increase it a little bit. But once we get to that stage, we'll see what the engine likes and what we can set it up. So I'm going to go into initial setup and we'll find our engine speed limits. And we'll go in here. As we can see, this is already set up at 7,500. Let's maximize this. And bring this over. Let's see what we got. 7,500. So that's starting off a little high. It's not high for probably a typical 4-cylinder, but our VR6 engine is a torque monster compared to a lot of the Volkswagen engines, and we'll see what it likes. So let's just reduce this to 7,200. That's not bad. We'll just drop it down just a teeny bit. And see what the engine like. It's got a engine speed limit switch where we can actually configure other settings as well into that, which is a great feature. So for example, if we wanted to set this up for overboost or anti-lag, any other little traction control, several parameters where we can activate a secondary speed limit if we wanted extra RPM. So I could actually set this B for 7,500 or even 8,000 or whatever the engine could handle. And if we wanted to do a brake boosting where we needed to really get down and make some heat and spool it up at a higher RPM, then we can do that for a limited time and have it drop back to the typical 7,200 that we have it programmed. But we'll keep that for the time being until we see what this thing likes to do. I just finished modifying one of my adapters. This is an M10x1 to a 1/8 NPT fitting. So I actually shaved the fitting down a little bit. You can actually see the difference here. And I taper flared it also. I'm going to modify this and adapt this to the fill rail for our 3.6 liter. That way, and the reason I tapered it so that way the fill flow can just kind of taper in there and it's not such a flat bottom end like this. I actually pressure tested this to over 400 PSI with the factory sensor and the aftermarket sensor we have that'll measure the fill temperature and fill pressure also. So I wanted this sensor to be in our actual fill rail itself, so that way we can measure the temperature that's going into our secondary fill injection system. I have my adapter installed in the fill rail and put a little extra Teflon tape just around the sensor itself. It should seal pretty well. I tested it to over 400 psi as I stated before without the Teflon, but just put a little extra Teflon around it for extra security. So I'm thinking this should be okay. Once we pressurize the fill system again, I think this would be good to go for this particular sensor. I did order some more fittings that should be in later on tomorrow, and I ordered the sensor to replace this. I ordered an 8 ORB 2 and 1/8 MBT. So that way I can screw my 1/8 MBT adapter into this, and that will then go to an M10x1, and that'll fit this sensor right here, and hopefully that'll eliminate the possibility of this bleeding off right here where this O-ring was popping out. And I did order an additional adapter also, another 8 ORB adapter to another 8, and that 8 comes out into a 5/16 fitting for this fill line right here. This barb fitting is exactly 5/16 that I measured, and that way we'll still be consistent and we won't be restricting the flow down, because 4AN is actually a little bit less in diameter than the 5/16 fitting for here. So that way we'll be consistent with flow. A few of the parts arrived for the TT. I'm still a little disappointed because my O-rings haven't arrived yet. I still have this aluminum washer in here, and that doesn't seal to my liking. This O-ring on this side sealed very well, so I did not have any issues out that at all. But what I did order, I ordered 8 ORB fitting. I do have these 1/8 MPT to M10x1 for the sensors, and I ordered a few different style 8RB also. Just got a nice little taper to it, and this comes out to the 5/16 fill line. So we're going to step this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this out the way, go down and replace this line from the 4AN and step it up to the 5/16 line. I have my hose removed, and it's not much difference. I'm actually swapping out this, the 4AN, for this 5/16 setup. But just for comparison, you can actually see that this is a 4AN, and the diameter is pretty similar, but actually you can definitely see that the 5/16 is a little bit larger. So that way we'll still be sticking with consistent size. So what I'm going to do next is I'll install a 8 ORB, and then I'm going to install the 5/16 hose, and I'll use some ear clamps to secure the hose on both ends. I decided to switch this setup up. I'm not content or happy with the way it turned out. I do have my ear clamps and everything pinched into position, but this actually pushed this 90 closer to the cylinder head than I like, and it's making slight contact. Even though all of this would be moving together because the fuel regulator is mounted to the mount with the engine, so this would rock together, but I'm still not happy with the fact that it's making contact. So what I am going to do is I have a JAGS close radius 8 ORB to a 8AN90. That should bring me a lot closer away from the cylinder head, but a lot closer in towards the fuel regulator. So this flare fitting should work pretty good. It's a nice tight radius. I can bring this in a lot closer, and that should at least give me, I want to say, a good 10 millimeter away from making contact to the cylinder head. Also, one of the things I did not like, I had to remove the bolt for the regulator, tilt it up in order to thread this in position. I don't want to have to, for us to have to go through all of that. If I do put a tight radius in here, we can still utilize that without having to remove any extra hardware. I'm pretty content with this setup. I have great clearance all the way around and away from my cylinder head, which is the most important part that I wanted. I have also a direct shot for the inlet for my fuel rail, so that turned out pretty good. This jag fitting is a swivel, so that gives me good movement for any type of expansion and contraction. We are going to just go ahead and install a new hose and some new ear clamps. The old one, I had to cut this off, the old new one, and this was on there pretty tight, so we'll get some new parts back on there and we should be good to go. So I'm slowly making some progress. So we now have our line connected for our direct injection pump that's pretty much squared away. I'm pretty sure this should be good and leak free. We didn't have any issues with this one before, but I'm pretty sure we're still going to be good with this setup, and we're clamped off pretty good. Next, I'm addressing the problem child that was before, the 2 leaks that was in this area from coming from these plugs. So what I have here is some new plugs, and they have a nice taper. These are pretty good. These are 8 ORB to 1/8 MBT. So, and then this one is also going to convert from that 1/8 MBT to an M10 by 1. So that way, hopefully this will seal up pretty good without any leaks for our sensor, because we definitely want to use this sensor to control our regulator. Not that I have to. I can still use this sensor because it is actually a pressure sensor as well as a temperature sensor, but I would rather pretty much stick with close to the factory configuration. Either one will work, but my primary goal for this one, this is going to be temperature. It can be a backup or secondary sensor for whatever reason we need, but regardless, and this will possibly eliminate the fact of me using this gauge over here, and I can just plug this off once everything's done and we get pretty much our calibration and everything set up with monitoring our fill pressure. But for the most part, I want to use the gauge so that way I can monitor the pressure that's coming in while I'm testing the system for leaks. I can also, my plan is to turn on all 3 pumps, pressurize the hell out of the system, regulate it all the way up to possibly 95 psi, a lot higher than we're going to run. This fuel pressure regulator is, the max range I think is pretty much 100 psi. I'm pretty sure it has a slight tolerance where you can go over, but I don't want to risk damaging the diaphragm. So we're going to push it to possibly 95 psi with all 3 pumps running, just to see if we have any type of system leaks at all. I'll start off with the primary pump first, and then if everything holds with that, then we'll kick in the other 2 pumps and have all 3 pumps running, just to see if we, and run it for an easy, steady 5 minutes with constant, consistent flow, and look for any slight drip or anything whatsoever. So that is the objective. Well, we're hooked up pretty good over here. I put some Teflon tape around these fittings and sealed them in pretty good, and they are very tight. So we're coming down to the final stretch. We're getting pretty close. I would like to go ahead and connect my fill filter. Only downfall is my O-rings haven't arrived yet. So I just checked the status, and more likely it's going to be tomorrow morning. It's already 9:48, and I seriously doubt if they deliver if I get a drop off at 10 o'clock p.m. at night. So more likely to be tomorrow morning. I do want to test the system, but I would hate to connect all of this up and pressurize it, but then to have to take everything back off just to install an O-ring on this side and the new upgraded one. I ordered some industrial O-rings, pretty much that's compatible with methanol and gasoline. My only thing is I'm getting a buzz from this fuel, and I do not want to keep spilling fuel all over my garage floor, trying to contain it and getting a buzz from it. But for now, my barb fitting connector for my boost reference, we're going to go ahead and install a plug in there. So these stainless steel plugs did come in, which is a good thing, and I can go ahead and plug it off this side because we have the AN fitting over here that's going to come off this side and connect to here. So we should be pretty much caught up. Once I do that, at least I'll install the return line, and then we'll pretty much wait before we install the top line, this feed and the inlet for the fill filter. Well, I'm going to pretty much call that a wrap for the night. I just connected my return line. Hopefully my weak links have been addressed with the new plugs over here. I tightened everything up nice and tight, secured everything also with a little extra Teflon tape, and hopefully that will resolve any leaks once we get ready to pressurize this. So I would have liked to have tested it out tonight, but it's getting late. We'll just go ahead and wait for tomorrow for our O-rings. They should be here sometime tomorrow morning. If they do not arrive by noon, I'm going to just go ahead and install another O-ring here, reconnect everything, and pressure test it and just see where we're at. So that way I'll have a good idea throughout the week where we're staying. So let's go ahead and call it a quits. That is all, folks. Good night.